This podcast was brought to you by the Podcast Rooms. If you would like to produce your own podcast, then visit thepodcastrooms.co.uk.
Hello and welcome to the first ever Louden Tavern podcast. And what a journey it's been, and that's what we've actually called this podcast, The Journey. And I'm joined by a really good friend of mine and the owner of the Louden Tavern, Robert Marshall. How are you doing, Robert?
I'm good, Ricky. Glad to be in.
Aye. What a season it's been, what a journey it's been.
Season's been tremendous, the journey's been hell.
The journey, but you know, when you look at what we've achieved, and like we were talking earlier on, and we were talking about emotions and things like that, and I actually seen you emotional for the first time ever at the Louden a couple of weeks ago. I've never seen that before.
I've never been like that before. For anybody that's listening, didn't see me, I just cried like a big baby. I got the words 10 year out, and that was me. I went to pieces. Right. And to be fair, most of the older Rangers fans in the pub said the same. As soon as I started my Tiny Tears advert, everybody went as well. So, I'm not ashamed of it. It's just a feeling.
See, just now I'm actually getting goosebumps just thinking about it. And I can remember, and I still can't believe we won the league so early.
I think it made it even better that we could glow it for 2 months. You know what I mean?
But I remember, see the day we won it, I remember my wife came in and she tried to speak to me, and she doesn't like football, she doesn't understand, you know. When I was doing the Rangers first stuff, she gave me back and all that, but she just didn't understand the whole thing. But she came in and she tried to talk to me. I couldn't speak. You know, I just couldn't speak.
Strange enough, I was okay because we won the league when Celtic drew at Tannadice. Yeah. I was okay. Broke the COVID rules, went to George Square, along with thousands of others, made sure I was well clear of everybody. I just wanted to enjoy the minute, you know, the moment, and I did enjoy it. I loved it. But the Aberdeen game was so emotional, just not for me. I think for everybody in the whole support. I think it was really emotional. Do you know, last night I was doing the Blues Brothers podcast, and they asked me what one of my kind of fondest memories of this season was, and mine was actually the last Old Firm, and I was in your pub in the beer garden, and it was all because I was back with my mates I've not seen for about a year, and it was just the whole, you know, it's been brilliant, and there's a lot of people that were in that pub that have been through, all the Rangers fans have been through the journey as well, but we've all been through it together in your pub, you know, so it was a really special day. Do you know, it's strange that you say that, Ricky, because I was just saying the other week that most of the people that were at the Louden and Aberdeen game were all well known to us, basically friends who have been with us for 10 years this October in the Louden, and they've been nearly every game, and that's what I liked about it. It was all the regulars, and I felt sorry for the hundreds and hundreds of regulars that couldn't get tickets, but because of the restrictions, there was nothing we could do about it, nothing at all, and it was quite annoying. It was, I know, I was just lucky I got a ticket, but you know, we've got a very, very special guest. I met this guy actually in your pub, and I couldn't believe he was in your pub, you know, but it just shows you what he is. He's just one of us, he's a Rangers fan, as like the rest of the Rangers board now, which is what we've been trying to get for years. So I'll just bring him on. Do you want to introduce him? You introduce him. I should say that, and this is not in any way trying to claim any credit, but I've known this lad for 8.5, 9 years now, and always found him to be really good, down to earth, and I don't think there's anything I can really say that everybody doesn't know. Our special guest tonight is the Rangers director and vice chairman, John Bennett. Evening, John. How are you?
Good evening, Ricky, and good evening, Robert. I'm very well. I was asked by Gary McAllister the other week, have you down off the ceiling yet? And that was actually a couple of months ago, believe it or not. Well, that was the 7th of March. And I'm just about down off the ceiling.
I think I'm still up there. Do you know what I'm going to open this discussion with, John? Could you tell the Rangers fans, now obviously I know a wee bit about this, but could you tell the Rangers fans when you first got involved with the club and how the sort of journey worked out for you?
Yeah, it was actually, there was a sort of mutual friend, so a guy I knew and a guy Paul Murray knew. And Paul was obviously, he was putting together, if you remember, the Blue Knights. And I said to this guy, Alistair, I said, look, I'm watching what's going on here. I'm prepared to help. Let me have a conversation with Paul. And I had a conversation with Paul. And that led to a meeting my first meeting with Douglas Park and Graham and other members of the Park family in Douglas's offices in Hamilton. And we were putting together the Blue Knights, basically the Blue Knights bid for Rangers. So that's when I first got involved. Obviously that didn't come to fruition, and a certain Charles Green temporarily got hold of the club. But that's when I first got involved, and I stayed very, very much, as many of us did, anybody on this podcast. You stay close to it, you stay looking at it, you're watching their manoeuvres, the behaviour, what they were doing to the club. And I just watched and waited. And the very first shares I bought in Rangers, which was a modest amount, was actually the day that Charles Green announced his resignation, because I knew that was the beginning of the end for certain regimes.
Did you ever think back then it was like a big risk to put all that money into Rangers when obviously you'd known what had happened in the past?
Certainly, Ricky. I think you look at it and you've got to divorce heart from head. And I'm in the investment business; that's what I do. And Rangers is different in that, of course, there's a large amount of emotional attachment. It's my family, so I'm going to invest in part of my family. It was investing. I always saw it as something that was about recuperation, rehabilitation and recovery of, let's face it, a family member that had been damaged, that had been really hurt, that was at the mercy of so many interests and different people, hurting again. A member of my family, a member of your family, a member of everybody on this podcast family. So that's how I saw it. I'm lucky enough to be in a position to help. Of course, there was very substantial risk in terms of personal, spiritual, emotional and financial investment, and it has required all of those. Happily, we've significantly de-risked the situation in a financial sense since then. It's been a long road, but yeah, I went in with my eyes wide open, because I turn it back. If a member of your family is being systematically hurt, abused, what do? You step in.
Yeah, what was it like when you first finally got into Ibrox? What was Ibrox like?
Well, I know, other people, Paul Murray and John Gilligan and others have talked about this from the day we went in. I remember Paul saying that he went over to Auchenhowie because people, frankly, needed an arm around their shoulder. People were shot. The remaining people, the people who had not been fired, they were shot, and you could see it in them. The fabric of the building, the very fabric, the physical fabric of the building, had been seriously damaged, but people had been damaged as well. That was an eye opener and really sad. And I think I'd say the other thing. Of course, I knew that financially and in many other ways it would be in a bad state. But I've said this to colleagues here in London. It wasn't until I sort of lifted the hood, you lift the bonnet, and I looked at it and went, oh my goodness, it really was in a worse state than I anticipated.
John, we really appreciate you coming on our first ever podcast. If there is, I don't know if there's going to be another one right now, but it would be good if there was. But Robert actually get quite a lot of questions sent through via email. So we're just going to fire in some of the questions, if that's okay. So the first one is from Michael. He's saying, was there ever a point that you thought that returning to a rightful place as Kings of Scottish football wouldn't happen?
No, never. And it wasn't just about my own determination and love for the club. It was the people I was aligned with, and I am aligned with. Is the people I'm with. Who am I in there with? And that's, you start with the boardroom. Yeah, you could start with the boardroom, but actually you start with the fans. Who are you with? I talked about this at the AGM when I talked about the 4 pillars. Who am I with in the boardroom? Who am I with in the operating board? I'm with people like George Latham and Stuart Robertson and Andrew Dixon. I'm with Ross Wilson. I'm with the PLC board. I'm with the Parks. I know I'm with really good people who really mean it, who love this club every bit as much as I love this club. Barry Scotts, Alistair, Julian, you know, that board, the operating board, and then the fans. You know, when I saw those fans from Brechin right through, and I always remember one game, it was a Hearts game at home. I think Stuart McCall was the manager. And prior to that game, there were doubts. People were expressing doubts. Will we be able to fill that stadium again? Will we really sustainably fill that stadium again? I remember the stadium was rocking. And I even talked to Anne Budge about it after the game. The stadium was rocking, actually. And we weren't even in the Premier League. And that's when I thought, no. I am shoulder to shoulder in the boardroom and outside the boardroom with the people that will save this club.
There is another wee add-on that Michael done, and it was Michael's from the Livingston Supporters Club. What was your lowest point during the whole journey?
My low point, that's an interesting one, because fans of the opposing club, if I mention this, will probably take pleasure when I talk about it. But I remember, if I talk about a low point, I just remember one low point before that. And it wasn't my personal low point, but I felt it because I took my son Ross. I've got 3 boys and a girl, and they're all Rangers daft as well. They obviously didn't have a choice, Robert, in that, but they were born it. So, and I remember taking my middle son to the Motherwell playoffs, both home and away. You'll remember it well. We shouldn't dwell on it too much. And I remember my son was really distraught, really upset, and the 2 things that stuck in my mind: Bill Mosney gave us proof positive that he wasn't a football player, but he was a boxer. And 2, if you remember that punch he landed on the chin of the boy. And then 2, my son Ross, and I took my son Ross aside and I said, this is your low point. As a young man, this is your low point in your life in supporting Rangers. It will be highs, there will be lows. This is your low point, son. And it will only make the high even higher. So that was a low for me because I'm his father and I witnessed how upset he was. Mine, and I don't want to dwell on it too much, Scottish Cup final, Hibs. That we, not for the first time. And I remember the corner, when it went out for a corner, and I thought, here we go. And you remember, Robert and Ricky, we weren't too good at defending in those days.
I think everyone has thought that, John.
A shadow of that back 4 that we have now. And I remember it went out for a corner, and Rangers were really good at beating themselves. And we beat ourselves that day. That was my low point in re-establishing us.
We've got one from David Clifford, and Michael, he's saying, at what point this season did you know we were going to win the league?
Well, were you guys the same? I bet you everybody goes through this. There's the point where you start to believe, and then there's the point where you allow yourself to believe. And for me, they were quite a few weeks apart. I remember Lech Poznan away, and I remember saying to Stephen, we are a very proper, back where we belong in the European stage, a very proper European football team. So Lech Poznan away, after Benfica and Liège and things, Lech Poznan away really confirmed to me we're back where we belong, toe to toe with good European football clubs, including Benfica. But let's go win this league. And then came January, that Old Firm game in January where we didn't play, the opening game of the calendar year, we didn't play well and we won. That's when I really thought we're going to do this, but that wasn't when I allowed myself to believe it. I allowed myself to believe it a night we weren't even playing. I think you might all remember it. Livingston in the snow. I remember Livingston in the snow. And that's when I thought, I knew we'd won the league prior to that, or I believed we had, but that's when I allowed myself to begin to relax.
Can I just say hello to a couple of friends of mine, since this is my first one, Robert Johnson and George Legbitter. They went to school with me, so they should be in their bed by now with their hot chocolate. So, want to do this one, Ricky? Next one? Oh no, this is mine, John. This is for George. It's actually George. Rangers announced over 44,000 season ticket sales this week. I'm going to repeat that. 44,000 season tickets we've sold up to this week. Our support has been phenomenal since 2012. Did you ever expect this level of support considering we ever went through what we went through? At the beginning, I'm talking about, obviously.
I did have my moments. When people were saying to me, and I referenced that Hearts game earlier when the stadium was rocking again. I remember in the weeks up to that, for whatever reason, people were saying, you know, will we really fill it again? Will there be that sustainable, you know, season ticket sale after season ticket sale? And I guess there were moments where I thought, that's a good point. Yeah, also because you remember the extent to which if we talk about it in franchise, sometimes people say franchise or brand. There was a concerted effort to damage and undermine our brand, our business, undermine Rangers. And you sort of sometimes worry, well, will that? I remember my brother said, you know, does it impact the younger generation? Do they turn away? Do they want to support Arsenal and Liverpool and English Premier League clubs? If they're so disillusioned, or their fathers have got disillusioned by the amount of obstacles thrown in the way of this club to get back. And they weren't disillusioned at all. I mean, I've actually seen the demographics, Robert, of the season ticket sales. Young and old. And I don't even want to say young and old are back. Young and old just never went away. I never really doubted it.
Got another question. This is from Robert. He's saying, we have a very successful and diverse pool of investors. How have you and the rest of the board convinced these investors to come on board?
Yeah, I think it's been, and I've met them, obviously. I think in the main, and this is an interesting one, I think, in the main, until a very recent investor, John Halstead, Rangers fans, you know, a love for Rangers. Julian might not have grown up a Rangers fan, Julian would have, but believe you me, he's a Rangers man. And, you know, he was introduced through George Taylor in Hong Kong, Rangers man through and through. George Latham, Rangers man through and through. I mean, George tracked me down literally to the other end of the world at the end of 2014 and said, this is what I think is going to play out. Are you still up for it? And I said, well, when certain things happen, frankly, when certain people go, I'm in. And that was a phone call. Honestly, the phone call, I said hello. I was actually, believe it or not, in the Galapagos Islands of all places with my family. I think, I don't know, looking at turtles or something in an ocean. And I was in the hotel and the phone went and as you don't know me, but I know you. And I thought, oh my God, I don't like those calls. I'm George Latham. And you know, George, by the way, George has been absolutely instrumental in so much of the good necessary that's happened in recent years. He's been an absolute linchpin. And I'm glad he made that phone call. So Rangers people through and through, the love of the club first and foremost. And then very interestingly, John Halstead, we came into contact with based in the United States, very successful guy. And John was very interested in a follower of European football. And it is, you know, I bet you guys are the same. It's useful to see yourself as others see you. And for me, it's very useful to see Rangers as others, like John, successful people, who frankly has his choice of club that he might want to invest in. I know that a friend of his has invested in an Italian club, for example. And he chose Rangers. He chose Rangers, and he chose Rangers for a reason. He sees the heritage, the history, and he also sees the future. So, you know, I'll bet you within, if he's not already, within weeks from now, he must be by now with 55, he'll be a Rangers man through and through.
Actually met him, he's very pleasant.
Yeah, he's a very pleasant guy.
I spoke to someone, I think it was Barry, and I says, what time does he shuttle down to London? He said he's got a private plane at Glasgow Airport. I'm glad I never asked him. Anyway, next question. Sorry, John.
Sorry, Rob. I was just going to say, I think the other, you know, every single one of these investors, they deserve just the enormous credit, including, you know, George Taylor and Stuart Gibson. Stuart's another linchpin and another terrific guy. I think you've met Stuart as well. Just a terrific guy. And and the love for Rangers, it just shines through them, you know. You don't have to spend too much time in the company of Stuart or George Latham, you know, they just love Rangers.
Right. It's been 10 years since we last won the league. What were your emotions on the day, and what did it feel like to carry the trophy out to be presented to our players? John, I've got to say, I'm going to interrupt you. I was so chuffed for you when I seen you come out with that trophy. I thought he deserves every bit of that. You know what I mean? So,
surely everybody feels this. Is, you know, if you go on stage to make a speech or whatever in business or do these things, the thing is you don't want to trip. I just don't fall and drop this damn thing. You know, there was that sort of thing goes through your head. I spoke to my brother that day, and we actually on the phone call were competing to see who started crying on the morning of the match, before the game, before 55, before the Aberdeen game, before the whole day. And I think I won, because I said to him, look, I woke up crying. I just woke up and it was, you know, it hits you, doesn't it? It just hit me, and I thought I was bubbling in the morning of the match because of everything you've been through, Ricky's been through, I've been through, Rangers fans globally, my club, everything it's been through and put through this last decade. I think it just hit me that morning. And so thankfully I wasn't bubbling by the time I got onto the pitch, but I've had a wee bubble since, I have to confess.
I know every so often I can't believe we've actually won it. Do you know, it's like, I don't know, but the fact that we won it like 2 months ago is just amazing. Here's another question. This is from Colin Stewart. It's not the Colin Stewart from the Lotto, by the way.
Or the coach.
Or the coach, but,
Colin's from Steps, just so
Steps.
that nobody attacks the Rangers boys.
That's Colin from Steps. He's saying, do you feel all of the areas in the club are back to pre-2012 levels? And if not, what areas do you feel we need to focus on?
I don't think they are. I don't think they are. I referenced at the AGM, I talked about the 4 pillars. And I think it's worth talking about them again, because I think maybe a better analogy is 4 cylinders. You need all 4 firing, and whether it's 4 cylinders, 4 pillars. So number 1, I said, was the fans. You know, the lifeblood, and that's there, and that is a cylinder. You saw 44,000. There we go. Match day tickets, season tickets. The fans, absolutely, never went away. So of course it's back to where it was. It never went away. European football, yeah, firing. I think we've proven that, and let's hope we can continue to prove that. We're back. European football, necessary for this club, for in every respect. Commercial, via James Bisgrove and his team, back. Absolutely. Better, way better than before, and strong and getting stronger. Huge effort by that entire team. And then the 4th one that I think, you know, if we just think in business terms for a minute, in terms of business models, because ultimately, guys, it would be reckless to run this club. I think reckless to run any venture, any business, but certainly reckless to run this club on a non-sustainable footing. We're not going back there. We cannot go back there. But we must get to sustainability. And the 4th pillar or cylinder, if you like, to fire, is player training. And the confidence that we all have, rightly so, in James Bisgrove and team, we all have, and rightly so, in Ross Wilson and team, to deliver that. And Ross will. And that's about being creative. That goes right through. Look at what Ross talks about, one club ethos, for example. Look at what Ross has done to scouting. Look at what's going on in the academy, the investment that we're making, or we have made, and I think that will yield fruit. And that player trading model, I think you will see Ross express and deliver and prove. And that's when, so it's one remaining cylinder to fire, if you like, to get going so that the engine is really humming along. And I believe that's imminent. That does not mean, and we proved this last year, I think a lot of eyes were raised when we went out. And we asked, what does Stephen and team need? to be the preeminent team in this country, which we once again are, to go toe-to-toe with and be the best we can be in group stages and beyond in European football. What does Stephen and team need? And it was made absolutely clear last close season. Now think about it via COVID. COVID's raging. What that's doing to the income of the club, and still no wonder eyebrows were raised. You go out, Cedric Itten, Kemal Roof, Yanis Hadji. You make those signings, and no sales. Huge strengthening quality into the squad. So when I talk about player trading and proving the model, that aspect of the model, it doesn't mean you sell. And I said this at the AGM. It doesn't mean you sell at prices or levels that are undesirable and that don't meet your valuations and that don't meet the mid-term and long-term plan for the playing squad. This is well thought out, very well thought out. No fire sales, but planned player trading. And we're on the cusp of that.
Yeah, do you know, like, I actually follow James Bisgrove on LinkedIn, and I've been totally impressed with how he can get all these partnerships, especially when we weren't champions at that point. You know, so, I mean, the work he's done is amazing, but you're saying that the backroom team, you're all getting the right team on board now. It's brilliant what you've done.
I think, Ricki, I think it's a great point you make about team. And one of the first people to look at Stephen's award in the last couple of days, League Manager's Award. Stephen's the first to talk about his team. And I've watched Stephen mould a team and put a team of people around him with skill sets. And it's the same in any business. It can never be a one-man, one-woman show. It's the same with Ross Wilson. Ross puts together a great team. James Bisgrove has put together a great team. You're upgrading people all around you, and we've all had to do that in our business lives. You've got to surround yourself with the very, very best. Look at what the investment we've been putting into the women's team. We want that to be the very best. We want that. This was the first club in the country to professionalise women's football. Doesn't get an awful lot of credit in these days, where there's still a lot of media. Dare I say, likes to come at the club and talk about some of the negative stuff and the negative news at this club. Look at the great positives that this club's doing. Anybody disputing it, that it's a modern, pioneering club, they're looking for the wrong stuff. They're looking in the wrong places. And I'm really proud of what we've done in women's football. We must make that women's team the very best that we can make it. And that's not just on the pitch, that's about off the pitch stuff as well. So every single aspect of this club is about, yes, you've got people leading each department, the football department, the commercial department, etc. But those people are the leaders, and they're backed by very strong talent. That's been very deliberate investment, again, planned in recent years. Crucial that you surround yourself with the very best.
John, David would like to know, are we looking to develop areas around the stadium other than Edmondson House?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about the footprint, if you like, of the stadium. We've got to make sure, again, you've got to do things in a planned way. We've got this opportunity to do something with Argyle House. It shall be done. And of course, each project comes to the board, Robert. And like any business, again, you've got to look at it. What's sustainable? What makes sense now? What makes sense now? We're going ahead with this, I think, hugely ambitious museum project. At a time when we're still trying to come out of COVID. It's about priorities. And any business faces, investment decisions. We're no different. So, yes, please do look for more, but the priorities right now are Edmondson House. We want to do more stuff with the stadium in terms of Argyle House and elsewhere. There is an opportunity to put in some more seating, for example. But we'll never stop. On the field and off the field, we will never stop. And that applies to the footprint of the stadium as well.
You've actually just about answered the next question. Frankie was actually wanting to know, is there any plans to expand Ibrox?
Yeah, there are. I mean, we do have the most immediate one is something around Argyle House, which will involve extra seating, and then there are longer term plans that we might be able to do that would add more seating, but I'm going to describe that as mid-term, because we want to do Edmiston House. We want to get that museum up and running. Especially for the 150 year is hugely important to us. I'm a real backer of the museum project. It means a lot to me. I do think this is a real legacy moment for the club, legacy period. We're making this bridge, if you like, from the recovery phase to a growth phase. I think that is an apt way to look at this. And I think when you see us putting in extra seating, new seating, some premium seating going in. And you ally that to Edmiston House, the museum, I think you'll see that this club is putting the dark years behind us. That recovery phase, we're not complete just yet. We're really not complete just yet. We're at a bridge period. We've got to get to that, but it's imminent, and we're going to move to the growth phase. Beyond that, I think you will see medium term, and I can't say it's not in 1 year's time. But I don't think it's as far away as 5 years' time. I think you will see a bit more stadium expansion happening.
I've got one here for Greg Marshall, not the SLO. What are the plans to take Rangers to the next level on the pitch? Are we looking to balance player trading with giving themselves the best chance of making the Champions League? Yes,
and that's where I think we are right now. I go back to the last year, close season. Think of anybody facing that decision. Recruitment, for me, recruitment is king. Recruitment is key here. And, hats off to Ross Wilson and his team for the recruitment that we've made of the players that we have signed. And I think where we are now is absolutely quality over quantity. And I think we showed that last close season with the Kemal Roof and the other signings I referenced. So I think where we are right now is quality over quantity. We got a very clear message that the board agreed with what we needed to win 55. And go not just to respectability in Europe, but beyond that. And I think we are a very highly respected football team in European football. Again, really important. We knew what we had to do last year in the teeth of COVID to do it, and we did it. We took that calculated risk. And we will go for quality over quantity again, and we have to do so within the confines of a sustainable model. That's in the interests of absolutely everybody. It would be reckless to do it in any other fashion. No board should take it back to where it went to from overreach. And that's before the bad guys got in. But I'm talking about, you see it time and time again in football where boards overreach. Owners and or collective boards overreach. We mustn't do that. And everything that we've got planned, we think we can achieve every success we want to achieve at home and in Europe within the bandwidth of a sustainable model.
Yeah. So, I think, see the way Rangers play in Europe, I think it just suits us. It's two teams are actually attacking each other, whereas in Scottish football, there's too many teams will just park the bus. So, European, I think, see if the fans were in this year, I think we could get a few steps further as well, but that's just me personally anyway.
Can I just get a wee shout out here? Blue Rangers seems to think it was Greg Marshall, the SLO. I can assure you it wasn't him. Definitely wasn't him. Spelt different. Johnny from Belfast has been his usual pest, Ricki, and saying hello. And my cousin from Canada, Janice, has told me to get away or something. So
I thought you had a wee lady friend there because she keeps on saying you're not smiling in the camera. So, aye, you just get dogs abusing this whenever you come on, so I wouldn't worry about it. Next one is from Stevie Clifford from the Four Lads and Brian Campbell from NASA. When does the board envisage the club will be non-reliant on boardroom investment, and what steps will we have to take to get there?
And I think if you get the AGM, any AGM is to receive the report and accounts and by the shareholders, and of course in the report and accounts we made it clear about the funding needs, the funding deficit going forward, and how we planned to meet that. And that has been, of course, the investors and remains the investors. So the deficit that we did have, it's coming down. It's been our job to do what we've done, to deliver 55, be the best we can possibly, go toe-to-toe with Benfica. I'm with you, incidentally, Ricki. We go toe-to-toe with top teams in Europe, and we play European football. Tremendous credit to the squad of players and all of the planning that's gone into that. So we've had to build that, win 55, and do so whilst heading to sustainability. And so the funding deficit is down. It's down, but it isn't out. It hasn't gone. So if you take our financial year, as you know, it's to the 30th of June every year. So it's not done 30th of June buys to anybody. It's a deficit. It won't be done financial year 30th of June 2022. But sometime, if you take it from now, in the next 12 to 18 months, we really want to be there in the next 12 to 18 months. Now, transfer windows will have a big part to play in that. Let's wait and see. But I believe it is now set up. If I see the rate at which we've whittled down the financial deficit, which is still meaningful, the funding initiatives we still have in place, incidentally, which you'll hear more of in the coming weeks, not months, but in the coming weeks, then I think that within the next 12 to 18 months, we're looking at, you need things to go your way. I think we're looking at financial self-sustainability.
Wiggy would like to ask about the new Edmondson House and how the club are funding it. So I think I've basically just said they'll find out in a few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've probably seen the launch of the supporters packages. I know that they're moving fast, actually, because I had a conversation with Stuart Robertson this morning, and he happened to mention to me that after day one, they were very popular. So that's the first stage. That's a first element. There are a number of funding streams to go into to Edmondson House, and we will be sharing more of those in the coming days and weeks. And I emphasise, Robert, that's not months, but the coming days and weeks. We'll be making public the financing initiatives that we have for that.
Okay.
Williams want to know, 55 is a magnificent achievement, but how do we continue to ensure the next decade is one of success? Is it continuing to focus on the 4 pillars you discussed at the AGM?
It is, Ricki. It absolutely is. We have to do it, and it all is in that wrapper, the safety wrapper or safety shell, if I can put it that way, of self-sustainability. No business can run on a financial deficit after financial deficit after financial deficit. No football club can or should continue to do that, and least of all this football club that's been kicked from pillar to post in so many ways in the last decade. So it is, you stay. I talk about staying aligned. I'll tell you the reason I think we're going to go on to do what's just been asked for the next 10 years, because we're Rangers. And we proved we're Rangers, not just by winning 55. We proved we were Rangers when we were kicked right down to the bottom rung. Our fans and our people, our investors who came forward, proved we were Rangers. And I don't want to say, well, that's the hard work done. The hard work's never done, certainly not in football. That's why you go again, you go again, you go again. Expectations only rise. I completely get that. Expectations only rise. But you must do all of this in that safety shell, if you like, within those parameters of self-sustainability. We mustn't ever again go to a level of overreach where we jeopardise this club. Never again.
John, there's a lad just message in, David Morrison. 55 was significant in so many ways, but how big is 56 given the 150th anniversary and go straight into the Champions League?
No, huge. I mean, it is absolutely huge. I mean, Rangers is about being serial winners. We all know that why 55 was so important. We all know why 55 was so important. And it's been said to me and my colleagues, I'm sure to you guys as well, it was the most important league title in this club's history. I do find it difficult to disagree with that. I must be honest. It's enormous. But what do you do? Are you going to, do you kick back and self-congratulate? Never in my business life have I ever done that. Never when I was at school did I ever do that. You know, this is Rangers. The DNA of Rangers people is to push on, is to be serial winners. And, 50, let's do 56. Let's celebrate 150. Boy, do we deserve to celebrate. For everybody that's gone on and everything that's gone on in the last 10 years, but also the last 150. Everybody, my father, my father's father, my family. That's why 55 was enormously important. 56 in the 150th year, enormously important. The hunger in Stephen and his team is a hunger that's shared, Robert, by you, by Ricki, by every fan, by every member of that board. It's not 55 and let's enjoy it. Oh boy, did I enjoy it. But we're ready to go again. I know exactly what Stephen wants and needs. Stephen and his team want and need to take us to the next level, push on to 56 and take us to the next level in Europe. Everybody has their shoulder to the wheel to make that happen.
Unfortunately, John, that's us running out of time. So much for having a 10-minute gab. Do you know what I'd like to say on behalf of all the Rangers family, and I mean every single one of them, we owe you a great debt, the directors, the shareholders. We love Steven Gerrard to bits and his team, but the most important people will always be the fans. Always be the fans. So I'm glad that it's fans that are in the boardroom. And here's to 56. God bless the Rangers.
Here.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, John.
Thanks, guys.
That was pretty amazing, eh?
Aye, he's a good lad. Says that to you, be dead honest and up front. And he's always been like that since ever I've known him. And that's why one of the things I like about him. And you know yourself, the rest of the lads come into the Louden as well. George Latham, Barry Scott, James Blair comes in. And I've met the American lad. Yeah, he was. I actually thought he was going for a flight to London. That was his own jet. You get him on. Stuart Robertson takes a lot of criticism. I don't understand why. He's very good at what he does. Everybody, the parts. I mean, there's nobody there that you can actually say isn't pulling the weight, Ricki. For you just touched on it. Well, maybe do another podcast about Rangers first. You remember that night, the days? You know what I mean? It was horrendous. It was horrendous. The Rangers fans must be the greatest fans in the world, and I'm not just sort of trying to sugarcoat them. I mean, we know by the Louden alone how loyal they are. We know, and we see it every single game. Just honestly, you couldn't. I'm not educated enough to tell you how good the Rangers fans are. Honestly, they're just you're lost for words for them.
I think if anything, it's built a bond that was already there, but it's made it stronger. When we get put down, we took the punishment and we done our time kind of thing, but it built. I think it made us even stronger fans, if you know what I mean.
I think it made us closer together.
Aye.
I don't know if it's strong. I think we've always been strong, haven't we?
Aye.
But I think it made us closer together. A lot of the sort of factions disappeared over the last couple of years, and I think Steven Gerrard came in. I think that was what we needed, a Hollywood manager.
Aye. I think what John was saying there as well is like everybody here talking from Rangers, if it's Steven Gerrard, if it's Michael Beale, they're all saying this same message.
Oh, aye.
We want to dominate, and I think that's so positive, and it's so good to hear after what we've been through the past 10 years.
I think the truth is we're the only team in Scotland that matter just now. We are. And,
we've always been the only team.
No, to be fair, there is one or two. I mean, Aberdeen were good in the 80s. But just now, we're the only team that matters. We're the one that's driving the money. We're the one that's driving the TV. We're the one that's driving everything. We're the one that's driving the coefficient in Europe. I mean, the only thing is, we seem to be the only ones that see it. The rest of Scottish football don't seem to see it. And I think that's a great shame, to be honest with you. I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was saying about when Aberdeen won the Cup Winners' Cup in 1983, the whole of Scotland wanted them to win it. Could you imagine the whole of Scotland wanting Rangers to win a trophy? It just wouldn't work.
Aye. And I've not actually asked you this, but I know you're really good friends with Graham Souness.
I'm not. I know Graham. I'm not.
Have you spoke to him since we've won 55?
I text him. He's happy. Let's put it that way.
He's happy.
Somebody says that you're a really great friend. I said, I'm not good a friend. I wouldn't get invited to his daughter's wedding. I know Graham relatively well now, and maybe I'll ask Graham to do one.
That'd be good.
So,
anyway, no, it's been a brilliant podcast. That's 45 minutes already, flowing in. But do you know, I've not said this to you either, but did you see the video that the boys at Dubai Loyal done?
Yeah, I did. That was quite impressive.
So I think we'll actually finish with that as well, because they actually raised. I'm going to put it up because they raised over $6,000, and they're splitting it between Chris Boyd Charity and also the Relevant Fund as well. You know, which is amazing. But when you see this video, I just think it's special. But thanks very much for inviting me to co-host with this show.
You're welcome, Ricky. I wouldn't have had anybody else because I wouldn't have trusted anybody else.
And do you know what? Somebody actually said, have you got a bleeper button ready for him? I've never really heard you swear, but you know what? I actually had it ready.
I don't use foul language.
That's what I said to this person as well. But you know what? On that note, we're going to take it out. But thank you very much, and thanks for all the viewers, and hopefully we'll be back again. All right,
we'll be back. Thank you.
Take care.